I'm pleased to have this opportunity to make an opening statement before we hear from the witnesses. I think we have to put all of this in perspective and not panic. Everybody said not panic, and then they made statements like, we're going to get tough, we're going to do something about it. Well, what do we need to do? First of all, we've got a problem in Africa, and this is a serious outbreak that could spiral beyond our control. On Tuesday, the World Health Organization estimated that soon there could be up to 10,000 new Ebola cases each week in West Africa. And CDC has warned that the outbreak could infect as many as 1.4 million people by the end of January. So this is a humanitarian crisis in Africa, and we have a responsibility to help, because if we don't help there, that outbreak is going to continue and spiral out to other places. And sealing people off in Africa is not going to keep them from traveling. They'll travel to Brussels, as one of the people did, and then into the United States. We can stop the epidemic from spreading in Africa or in the United States if we isolate the patient and contact and monitor the contacts of that patient. And if we do that, we can stop it there and we could stop it here. So in Africa, we need to know, are we moving fast enough? Responders have adequate resources? Are we effectively coordinating our response with other countries and international organizations? But here, people are scared, and we shouldn't make them even more frightened. Put this in perspective. We've had 3 recent cases of Ebola in this country. Thomas Duncan, who entered the U.S. while harboring Ebola and who flew through Brussels to get here. Nina Pham and Amber Vinson, the nurses who became ill while caring for Mr. Duncan. We should be concerned about these cases, and we need to act urgently, but we need not to panic. What we have to do is learn what we need to do, what mistakes we have made, and not repeat them. We want to find out what happened at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, how CDC, state and local health officials and hospitals can improve procedures moving forward. We should also use this as a wake-up call to ensure the adequacy of our own public health and preparedness safety net. We need to be prepared before a crisis hits, not scrambling to respond after the crisis. In the past decade, the ability to fund research and public health programs has declined here in the United States. Since 2006, CDC's budget, adjusted for inflation, has dropped by 12%. Funding for the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Cooperative Agreement, which supports state and local health department preparedness activities, has been cut from $1 billion in its first year of funding in 2002 to $612 million in 2014. All of these were also subject to the sequestration. And those who allowed that sequestration to happen by closing the government have to answer to the American people as well. We need to commit adequate funding to public health infrastructure. We need to hold public health systems accountable to standards of preparedness. Based on what we know, it appears that Texas Presbyterian would have not met those standards. Though in fairness, I suspect that many hospitals all over the country would also have struggled to respond. This is a problem we have to solve. Mr. Chairman, before I run out of time, I want to acknowledge the healthcare workers and volunteers, those treating Ebola victims in the U.S. and those who have traveled to West Africa to help during this outbreak. It's a dangerous work that they're doing. They're putting themselves in danger to save lives. They deserve our thanks and our praise. I also want to thank all of our witnesses. You have my confidence, and I appreciate you joining us today to provide answers about how to stop the current Ebola outbreak in Africa and how to improve our public health systems to avoid the next crisis. I'm ending my career at the end of this year, but I've been through so many hearings where when there's a crisis, we have congressmen sit and point fingers. Well, let's point fingers at all of those responsible. We have our share of responsibility by not funding the infrastructure. In Africa, they have no infrastructure. We have to help them develop it to deal with this crisis, but we shouldn't leave ourselves vulnerable by these irrational budget cuts.
Gentleman's time has expired.